Chapter 1, Book 1 of Rookwood. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. This reading by Paul Curran. Rookwood, Book 1, The Wedding Ring. It has been observed, and I am apt to believe it is an observation which will generally be found true, that before a terrible truth comes to light, there are certain murmuring whispers fly before it, and prepare the minds of men for the reception of the truth itself. Gallic Reports. Case of the Count Saint Geran. Chapter 1. The Vault. Let me know, therefore, fully the intent of this thy dismal preparation, this talk fit for a charnel. Webster. Within a sepulchral vault, and at midnight, 2 persons were seated. The chamber was of singular construction and considerable extent. The roof was of solid stone masonry, and rose in a wide semicircular arch to the height of about 17 feet, measured from the centre of the ceiling to the ground floor, while the sides were divided by slight partition walls into ranges of low, narrow catacombs. The entrance to each cavity was surrounded by an obtusely pointed arch, resting upon slender granite pillars, and the intervening space was filled with a variety of tablets, escutcheons, shields, and inscriptions, recording the titles and heraldic honours of the departed. There were no doors to the niches, and within might be seen piles of coffins packed one upon another, till the floor groaned with the weight of lead. Against one of the pillars, upon a hook, hung a rack of tattered time-out-of-mind hatchments, and in the centre of the tomb might be seen the effigies of Sir Ranulph de Rookwood, the builder of the mausoleum, and the founder of the race who slept within its walls. This statue, wrought in black marble, differed from most monumental carved work, in that its posture was erect and lifelike. Sir Ranulph was represented as sheathed in a complete suit of mail, decorated with his emblazoned and gilded surcoat, his arm leaning upon the pommel of a weighty curtal axe. The attitude was that of stern repose. A conically formed helmet rested upon the brow. The beaver was raised, and revealed harsh but commanding features. The golden spur of knighthood was fixed upon the heel, and at the feet, enshrined in a costly sarcophagus of marble, dug from the same quarry as the statue, rested the mortal remains of one of the sternest knights to his mortal foe that ever put spear in the rest. Streaming in a wavering line upon the roof, the sickly flame of a candle partially fell upon the human figures before alluded to, throwing them into darkest relief, and casting their opaque and fantastical shadows along the ground. An old coffin upon a bier, we have said, served the mysterious twain for a seat. Between them stood a bottle and a glass. Evidences that, whatever might be the ulterior object of their stealthy communion, the immediate comfort of the creature had not altogether been overlooked. At the feet of one of the personages were laid a mattock, a horned lantern, from which the candle had been removed, a crowbar, and a bunch of keys. Near to these implements, of a vocation which the reader will readily surmise, rested a strange superannuated terrier, with wiry back and frosted muzzle, a head minus an ear, and a leg wanting a paw. His master, for such we shall suppose him, was an old man with a lofty forehead, covered with a singularly shaped nightcap, and clothed, as to his lower limbs, with tight ribbed grey worsted hose, ascending externally, after a bygone fashion, considerably above the knee. The old man's elbow rested upon the handle of his spade, his wrist supported his chin, and his grey glassy eyes, glimmering like marsh meteors in the candlelight, were fixed upon his companion with a glance of searching scrutiny. The object of his investigation, a much more youthful and interesting person, seemed lost in reverie, and alike insensible to time, place, and the object of the meeting. With both hands grasped around the barrel of a fowling piece, and his face leaning upon the same support, the features were entirely concealed from view. The light, too, being at the back, and shedding its rays over rather than upon his person, aided his disguise. Yet, even thus imperfectly defined, the outline of the head and the proportions of the figure were eminently striking and symmetrical. Attired in a rough forester's costume of the mode of 1737, and of the roughest texture and rudest make, his wild garb would have determined his rank as sufficiently humble in the scale of society, had not a certain loftiness of manner, and bold though reckless deportment, argued pretensions on the part of the wearer to a more elevated station in life, and contradicted, in a great measure, the impression produced by the homely appearance of his habiliments. A cap of shaggy brown fur, fancifully but not ungracefully fashioned, covered his head, from beneath which, dropping in natural clusters over his neck and shoulders, a cloud of raven hair escaped. Subsequently, when his face was more fully revealed, it proved to be that of a young man of dark aspect and grave, melancholy expression of countenance, approaching even to the stern when at rest, though sufficiently animated and earnest when engaged in conversation or otherwise excited. His features were regular, delicately formed, and might be characterized as singularly handsome, were it not for a want of roundness in the contour of the face, which gave the lineaments a thin, worn look, totally distinct, however, from haggardness or emaciation. The nose was delicate and fine, the nostril especially so. The upper lip was short, curling, graceful, and haughtily expressive. As to complexion, his skin had a truly Spanish warmth and intensity of coloring. His figure, when raised, was tall and masculine, and though slight, exhibited a great personal vigor. We will now turn to his companion, the old man with the great grey glittering eyes. Peter Bradley of Rookwood, comitatus ebor, where he had exercised the vocation of sexton for the best part of a life already drawn out to the full span ordinarily allotted to mortality, was an odd caricature of humanity. His figure was lean, and almost as lank as a skeleton. His bald head reminded one of a bleached skull, allowing for the overhanging and hoary brows. Deep-seated, and sunken within their sockets, his grey orbs gleamed with intolerable lustre. Few could endure his gaze, and, aware of his power, Peter seldom failed to exercise it. He had likewise another habit, which, as it savoured of insanity, made him an object of commiseration with some, while it rendered him yet more obnoxious to others. The habit we allude to was the indulgence of wild, screaming laughter, at times when all merriment should be checked, and when the exhibition of levity must proceed from utter disregard of human grief and suffering, or from mental alienation. Wearied with the prolonged silence, Peter at length condescended to speak. His voice was harsh and grating as a rusty hinge. "Another glass," said he, pouring out a modicum of the pale fluid. His companion shook his head. "It will keep out the cold," continued the sexton, pressing the liquid upon him; "and you, who are not so much accustomed as I am to the damps of a vault, may suffer from them. Besides," added he, sneeringly, "it will give you courage." His companion answered not, but the flash of his eye resented the implied reproach. "Nay, never stare at me so hard, Luke," continued the sexton. "I doubt neither your courage nor your firmness. But if you won't drink, I will. Here's to the rest eternal of Sir Piers Rookwood. You'll say amen to that pledge, or you're neither grandson of mine, nor offspring of his loins." "Why should I reverence his memory?" answered Luke, bitterly, refusing the proffered potion. "Who showed no fatherly love for me. He disowned me in life. In death, I disowned him. Sir Piers Rookwood was no father of mine." "He was as certainly your father. Susan Bradley, your mother, was my daughter," rejoined the sexton. "And surely," cried Luke, impetuously, "you need not boast of the connection. 'Tis not for you, old man, to couple their names together, to exult in your daughter's disgrace and your own dishonor. Shame! Shame! Speak not of them in the same breath. If you would not have me invoke curses on the dead,